Hi, everyone, and welcome back to our next hour, 24 Hours of Rare. In this hour, we have a couple of very exciting organizations. One is a CDH International, and that's headed up by Dawn Ireland. Dawn is on the line with us, and Dawn is actually in Chile right now, but she is joining us, so it's so great to have her. And then following that, we're going to hear from Lisa from Kaknawane. And so without any further ado, I'm going to go ahead and get this started. And then Dawn, after this video plays, we'll come back on and we'll chat for just a few minutes.
Hello, I am Dawn Ireland. I am president and founder of CDH International, and it is based in North Carolina, in the U.S. However, I am in Santiago, Chile this week for the World Birth Defect Conference, which World Birth Defect Day happens to fall very closely to Rare Disease Day. And so I am doing double duty this week, and it's super hot and super tired. But we're doing 24 hours of Rare, and I wanted to represent Chile as well. So now I'll tell you a little bit about charity. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dawn Ireland, president and founder of CDH International, and it's my pleasure to once again be a part of 24 Hours of Rare. I'm the global head of CDH International in 7 countries, including the United States, United Kingdom, Switzerland, Netherlands, Canada, Hong Kong, and Singapore. I am a patient advocacy consultant at Habits Health and You, co-founder of the Worldwide Rare Advocacy Partnership, or RAP, co-founder of the Global Research Alliance for Congenital Anomalies, or GRACIA, and co-founder of the Alliance of Congenital Diaphragmatic Hernia Organizations, ACDHO. Congenital diaphragmatic hernia occurs when a baby's diaphragm fails to fully form, allowing abdominal organs to enter in the chest cavity and preventing lung growth. The cause of congenital diaphragmatic hernia is not known. 50% of these children do not survive. Those who do survive endure long hospitalizations, complicated surgeries, and a long recovery. 1 in 2,500 babies is diagnosed with congenital diaphragmatic hernia. One of those children was my son Shane. He was born in 1993 with left-sided congenital diaphragmatic hernia, along with several other birth defects. He was transported at 6 hours old via helicopter to a children's hospital out of state. Shane endured 10 months of hospitalization in the PICU right after he was born. He had 2 surgeries in the hospital, one at 3 days old and one at 4 months old. He also endured many complications and infections, including pneumonia 4 times, over 30 blood, kidney, and urinary tract infections, and a hypoxic episode at 4 months old that left him blind and deaf. We had to fight for 10 months to take our son out of the hospital, AMA. He came home on full ventilator support, feeding tube, oxygen, the whole 9 yards, and we were told that he would not survive past 2 weeks. But the doctors were wrong. We were very blessed to have Shane for 6.5 years. He was a happy little boy. He went to school and completed the 1st grade, and he was active and walked and did sign language and loved Sesame Street and books and Matchbox cars and going to Chuck E. Cheese. And he also re-herniated 6 times, which he's still tied for the world record, unfortunately, and hopefully no one else will have that many re-herniations. We lost him at 6.5 years old unexpectedly from re-herniation and from gastropleural fistula. In 1993, when my son was born, there was no internet, no Google, no way to find information or support with our family's journey with congenital diaphragmatic hernia. I spent a lot of time in the medical library at the hospital and had no one to turn to except another mom who knew as little as I did. So when my son was 2 years old in 1995, I started CDH International, which was then called Cherubs. And for almost 30 years, I've been fighting congenital diaphragmatic hernia. It has been an uphill battle fighting congenital diaphragmatic hernia, despite that it has the exact same occurrence rate, 1 in 2,500, as Turner syndrome, spina bifida, children's craniofacial issues, Charcot-Marie-Tooth disease, and cystic fibrosis. If you compare the amount of money spent on cystic fibrosis versus CDH, it is $3,406 to $1 for CDH. They're both two incredibly important causes, but we're using this diagram just to show the difference. Cystic fibrosis is 20 years ahead of us as far as research and patient community. So we hope sooner rather than later we will catch up to them. But right now, per patient, congenital diaphragmatic hernia is the lowest funded rare disease and congenital anomaly, with only $100 in research funding per patient per year, despite the fact that there are 52,000 new CDH patients every year globally. CDH International is dedicated to finding the cause, prevention, and the best treatments for congenital diaphragmatic hernia, while also supporting affected patients and families. It takes a global army to fight this rare disease, and we have a wonderful group of executive directors, medical advisory board members, patient advocates on our board, and an office staff. But I also want to talk a little bit about the implications of the last 3 years on our organization and all small disease organizations, or small organizations for rare diseases, rather. So the impact of congenital diaphragmatic hernia has affected our team because there's less donations, less sponsorships, less volunteers, a lot of burnout, and loss of projects and services. Our organization has lost 2 staff members and quite a few volunteers over the past 3 years. Despite all of that, we are working hard on the patient registry. We have made a lot of progress. We have been published quite a few times, and we run the Global Natural History Registry for CDH. You can see some of our collaborations here, the organizations that we work with, both rare disease, medical associations, other congenital anomaly organizations. Our patient registry was founded in 1997. We started that ourselves, and now we work with the NIH, the EU, the WHO. But the impact of COVID-19 and the economy on disease research has been quite significant. And we've had less research donations, less sponsorships, less fundraisers, less government grants available for CDH across the board, less participation from patients because of the amount of stress they've been undergoing, loss of research labs and university focus as they transition to COVID-19 research and other research that's better funded. And so we've lost a lot of CDH research in the last 3 years, a lot of opportunities. But to help bring about more research, we need more CDH awareness. And so we've been doing a lot of awareness projects for many years now. You can see one of our families held an event at the school and got the whole school involved in CDH colors. And we do so much to raise awareness. We have had a lot of celebrity support. We have a telethon every year in April. April 19th is Global Congenital Diaphragmatic Hernia Awareness Day. We work very hard. We have light-ups around the world. This year, we have brought in some new countries. We have Russia has light up. We have Croatia, Poland. So really excited. We have over 100 light-ups this year, I believe. We created the CDH awareness ribbon, and it is the official ribbon in 2004. We've had legislation passed in the House, the Senate, and now that things are calming down a little bit, maybe, knock on wood, with politics, in the next year or two, we'll be able to have legislation back up on the Hill for CDH Awareness Day. So you can see some pictures of events that we've had. We have rung the bell on the New York Stock Exchange. We've gone to the Hill. We've had Niagara Falls light up. We've done Christmas parades, Good Morning America. Politicians have visited our office. We've done a lot of work across the board. We're really, really proud of our families in CDH International. But I also want to touch a bit on some of the struggles we've had the last couple of years. The biggest impact on awareness that our community has had is the impact of competitions between organizations, where we have a problem with multiple awareness days, multiple ribbons and colors, competing for light-ups. It's been a big problem in 2 countries this year for us, where we have requested light-ups in these countries that we've been working in for a long time, and had other organizations contact light-ups and tell them not to light up for our day, but their day. So it's really conflicting for families, and it's just caused a lot of division, and we've a loss of light ups where landmarks just don't want to deal with it. So we're struggling with that, and also competing for legislation, and that encompasses a loss of awareness altogether when you have those issues, and then patients and families get frustrated and they no longer become involved. So a loss of patient involvement, altogether. And so it's so incredibly detrimental to awareness, and then in turn to research, and then in turn to patients. The CDH supports. We provide as many services as we can to families any given moment when we have the resources, the bandwidth to do so. Connecting families together, CDH Hope Project, which is care packages, annual CDH conference in person, financial assistance, funeral assistance, scholarship, tons of online support. But COVID-19 and the economy has wreaked havoc on patient groups, a lot of patient communities, not just CDH community. Families are going through a lot. They have the fear, the loss of health if they contract COVID. They have fear of loss of services, the loss of life. Caretaker burnout. Families are just burnout across the board. Healthy families dealing with COVID and the pandemic and lockdown. So can imagine how detrimental it's been on families with disabled children with lung defects, worried about a virus. We didn't know how it affected CDH patients, but thankfully, most of our patients who have caught COVID have fared very well. So, shockingly, we're so grateful for that. We have lost a couple, and we're heartbroken. But we were fearing so much worse. And so we're very grateful that COVID-19 has not affected the families, the children as much. However, we lost several other family members, and they've had less support from nonprofits over the last couple of years because the nonprofits are struggling, not just CDH nonprofits, but other local nonprofits have not been able to fund and offer services as well as they could have, like the Ronald McDonald House is having to shut down because of the pandemic. Well, babies are still being born, still hospitalized, families still need to be there, but families have been separated, siblings have not been able to attend, both parents have not been able to be at the hospital at the same time, grandparents have not been able to visit. So it's been traumatizing couple of years all across the board for every disease community. And then for nonprofits, we've not been able to fund as many services as we want for families. And that has been a huge struggle because we just want to provide as much as we possibly can, make the burden of CDH as less burdensome as possible. And it's just been really hard. But we were seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. We have several funds in our organization, support, research, awareness, financial assistance, funeral assistance, and scholarships. And so when donors donate to our organization, they can donate to any 6 of these funds for the American charity. For other 6 charities, we are only funding research at the current time. But, as I've said previously, it's been a huge impact on organizations like ours, small organizations dealing with COVID and the economy over the last few years. So we've had to cut down some of these funds, and that's just been devastating. And we hope that we can bring those back soon. Transparency. We are such proponents of transparency in our organization. We have had independent audits every year so that our donors know where money goes. We want them to be 100% sure of where every donation goes, and so that they can be proud of who they are helping and what they're doing. Their donation dollar goes a very long way to our organization, and we work so diligently on this that this year, 2022, in the past year since we've talked to you here at 24 Hours of Rare, our organization achieved a perfect 100% rating with Charity Navigator, and we are so incredibly proud of that. Well, that's one of our accomplishments in the past year. We have been pushing very hard for the patient voice at medical conferences. That is a big pet peeve of mine personally, the fact that there's not patient voices at every single medical conference, every biotech conference, every single conference about us. Nothing about us without us is such a true statement. It's so incredibly important. And we've been working with Terrapin, trying to get more voices at their conferences, at the biotech conferences, but also at a few other events as well. And we have some projects underway that hopefully we'll be able to tell you about next year. but we're also very involved in the congenital anomaly community. So currently, as I said earlier, I'm at the World Birth Defects Conference representing patients there or here, and that's the first time that's happened. So really excited that CDH has a voice, and so we'll continue to keep opening doors and pushing for that. GREGA was founded in the past year for congenital anomalies, and we're very proud to work with gastroschisis community, the phalangeal community, the tracheoesophageal fistula community, and many other like diseases, midline birth defects that are created around the same time gestation and often confused with one another in utero diagnosis. And so we're really proud to work together to give those patients a louder voice, and then extremely proud to be co-founders of the Worldwide Rare Advocacy Partnership. And we look forward to bringing a lot of things to the rare disease table in the near future. And then we work with the Diaphragmatic Hernia Alliance and so many other pediatric surgery alliances and associations. There's a long list. We're incredibly busy. But we've also been published in several medical journals in the past year. And we tipped over the 2.5 million in fundraising. That's our whole existence, not just the past year. And we are very, very close to the 3 million mark. So we hope to celebrate that very soon. We are very involved in the rare disease circuit, and we're very proud of the relationships that we have with other patients and other leaders and advocates. And we hope to be a very large voice for congenital anomaly or birth defect patients in the rare disease world, because there's not a very large voice for those particular patients. And so we hope to represent them a little bit more in rare disease. And 28 years now, we've been a charity. We just turned 28 2 weeks ago, and we have done a lot. And we're very, very proud of all the work that we've done. And we're very grateful to all of our friends here in the rare disease sector. And I'd like to show you a little bit of map of where our nonprofits are located, but we have families that we work with in 84 countries and colleagues in the rare disease world and patient advocacy world in many, many countries. And we continue to grow. We hope to add another NGO in the next year. We're going to keep that under wraps until that happens. Important slide. And that's these children and why we fight every day and why we get up and keep pushing and advocating and shoving doors until they open and making phone calls and sending emails and doing the fundraisers and all the hard work that it takes to create the communities and create the organizations and raise the awareness and fund the research, participate in the research, is to give hope to not only these beautiful children involved in rare disease, but also the many adults who are not often counted like they should be in the rare disease sector. And so we want to acknowledge them as well. Once again, it is wonderful to work with the DASH Alliance and be a part of 24 Hours of Rare. I hope to see you again next year and have an even bigger report of some of the amazing things going on at CDH International. And I hope to get to know a lot of you better, your fellow advocates and charity leaders and patients, and hear your stories and become more involved in rare disease. Thank you, and have a great Rare Disease Day. Bye-bye.
All right, Dawn, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you for having me, Jeff. It's always wonderful to be a part of this great event every year.
Well, I know you got a jet here in just a few minutes for meetings and stuff, but among all the people that I know, you have done from the States here, you have done so much international travel. And you've done it during COVID, you've done it, and you yourself, I'll need to say this, you've had COVID a couple of times, and I know it's impacted you with it, but what's been your experience here during this climate of time? I think that that's a unique thing that you've seen, and you've talked about that a little bit on the video. But what have you seen in traveling, and how has that impacted you in being able to reach families, outside of the States through these other organizations?
Oh, well, obviously the first year of COVID it was really hard doing anything, going anywhere, not only because I was dealing with COVID, but just because everything was shut down. Now, 3 years later, it's wonderful to see medical conferences happening again, to meet the researchers and the other charity leaders, so that we can have more impact on rare disease and congenital anomalies for the patient. So it's definitely getting better. We're not up to the standards that we were 3 years ago. I think it'll be another year or two before we are back how things were, barring anything else going on crazy in the world, which is like day by day, who knows what's going to be happening next. But things are getting a little bit better, and research has been progressing through it all. So that's been really great to see. The research still happening, slower, but it's still happening. My biggest fear was that everything was going to stop and everything was going to focus on COVID, and there would be nothing left for our patients, but our patients are still getting care. And I think the louder that we are collectively as rare disease leaders, and making sure that these patients are not forgotten amongst the chaos that is the world right now with everything that's going on, I think the better patients will be. But it's going to take all of us to keep banging on the walls and going, hey, these patients are still here, they're still struggling, still being born, they're still dying, and we cannot forget them. They cannot just be forgotten amongst everything else. So we just keep doing that.
Well, I muted myself. Well, thank you for sharing that. And I guess, I always ask you this, or I'm always asking Eden, one of the two. What's the next thing slated on your plate up and coming? You're in Chile right now. What are you going to be doing next?
I was hoping to get to Europe after this, some of the European conferences, but funding is still a big issue right now. So I will be back home in the US, but that's okay, because I'm going to see, some great leaders there, including you and Eden and Rebecca. And so I am really excited about seeing all of you when I get back home. And then the rest of the year is a whirlwind of more conferences and more research. And we're holding our first in-person conference in Toronto in July for CDH families. So it's been a long time since we've been able to give a lot of hugs to a lot of kids. So I'm really excited about that.
Well, that's awesome. And so exciting. I mean, you live, exciting lifestyle. The kids love seeing where you go. They love hearing about the work that you're doing. And, from us, thank you so much for what you do and what you continue to do. And, for the rare disease community, not just for CDH, but you also are impacting other areas as well. So thank you, Don. We're going to switch gears real quick, and I want to show a short video that was sent to us by CACTA 1A and Lisa Manister, who heads up that foundation, sent this in. So please enjoy.
Early on, we saw every specialist. We saw neurologists, neurooptometrists, orthopedists, all of the doctors. So we traveled to Johns Hopkins and we got no diagnosis. Every test sort of came back normal, but then she wasn't developing in terms of gross motor skills. And at some point we realized, actually one of the doctors at Johns Hopkins told us that science just probably hadn't caught up to her yet. And that whatever she had, we would discover it, but science wasn't there yet, and that someday science would catch up.
We saw so many doctors across the country geneticists, neurologists, but it wasn't until 2017 when we actually got a diagnosis. Emily was 20 years old.
It was about a year ago we found out that her genetic testing revealed a mutation on her CAC-NA1A gene, or CACNA1A. And it was a relief to find an answer to explain what we were seeing in our daughter. But at the same time, it was really, we were shocked and in disbelief because our doctor gave us this news, but really had no resources to explain what this meant for her life.
For our daughter's diagnosis, it was a 4-year journey. We ended up going through the Undiagnosed Diseases Network at NIH after she received an incorrect diagnosis in infancy. And then once we came to NIH, and it was their sole job to find an accurate diagnosis, they told us that she had a CACNA1A variant and not much more.
When she was 10, she had a medical crisis and was in the hospital. We now know it was a hemiplegic migraine, which is a stroke-like episode. And so we had to start testing anew just to rule things out. We found her diagnosis.
Individuals with CACNA1A mutations experience a wide range of symptoms, including often uncontrolled epilepsy, a balance and coordination disorder called ataxia, eye movement disorders, and hemiplegic migraines, which are stroke-like events that result in paralysis on one side of the body, loss of skills, and potentially fatal cerebral edema. There are no specific treatment options for this disease, and our kids are often in and out of the hospital to manage medical crises. What is even scarier for us as parents is that CACNA1A can also be neurodegenerative, which is why we need to accelerate research towards a cure.
When she was 4 years old, when we received the CACNA1A variant, we immediately turned to the internet. We looked for resources and we looked for specialists. But mostly what we end up finding is other families that are in our situation.
I started reading, but I couldn't find anything in layman's terms. So we went to see a geneticist to learn about the diagnosis. And the first thing she said to me was, "Have you joined a Facebook group?"
So we ended up on a private Facebook forum with a lot of other families, looking for information, looking for connections, looking for somebody with our child's exact variant, which we didn't find, but we found commonality with other families, particularly mothers, who were doing the same thing that we were. We were reaching out for connections, we were reaching out for information, and looking to find out what is the best way forward for our child so that she can thrive and have the best quality of life possible.
We set up the foundation in the spring of 2020, right before the COVID-19 pandemic.
So we've met on Zoom, we've met on FaceTime, but we've really never met before. So walking into a room, it was just so different.
I've got to see their faces in little boxes, but I've never had a chance to meet them or their daughters. And so it was really special to be able to see the daughters that are the driving force behind all of our work. We shared experience, right? I mean, that's what we're all looking for in life, is to find someone who's like shared, I think oftentimes some of our hardest experiences. And there's something really refreshing about being in a room of people who you don't have to explain, and there aren't questions, and you don't ever feel like they're sitting there wondering but not asking their questions. Like, we all just get it.
Since launching this foundation, we've been moving at lightning speed. This past weekend, we had a family and scientific conference, and we had 225 people register. We had 70 scientists and healthcare professionals join us, and people came from 21 countries. So it was really, really successful, and we're here and hoping to make a difference for our kids.
I think in general, when you have something that's rare, that's not where research dollars are necessarily put, less people are focused on it, right? But at the same time, we have found people who are focused on it, scientists at universities across the world and in labs across the world, but it's been very siloed. And so, they haven't necessarily been sharing with one another, talking about what they found. And we're really looking to be that missing link to connect people, to bring everybody together, because through that, we will see science move at a faster pace, hopefully.
I think the main focus and goal of the foundation is to build this collaborative network of researchers, clinicians, and families and patients to work towards a cure.
We have to have the families and patients with CACNA1A join us in this fight, and meeting everybody here today just solidifies it for me that we're going to be able to do this, and we're going to be able to do it together because there's strength in numbers.
How can people help the foundation? The bottom line is that we need funding.
There is a lot of basic research on the CACNA1A gene, but we are looking to fund translational research, which means research focused on a cure.
The foundation has given us a great sense of hope and purpose, and we know that together we can push science forward because the science is there. We just really need to organize our community, we need to organize our researchers, and we need to show them that these kids deserve a cure.
I think my one piece of advice that I would tell parents is that you have to always be optimistic and you can't underestimate your child.
I would tell myself to worry a little bit less, that she's going to be okay, she's going to thrive, we're going to thrive, and that life really is going to be more beautiful than all of my fears that are keeping me up at night.
I think the most important thing is to live in the moment and really enjoy your daughter or your son for who they are and what they can do, and just really celebrate every milestone.
My favorite thing about my daughter is how happy she is. She always has this great smile on her face. She has a wonderful sense of humor, and she makes us laugh every single day.
Her imagination and creativity, she lives in a place that's magical. Like, she's always imagining, I don't know, like sliding on a rainbow or riding a unicorn, and it reminds me to lighten up and look for the magic too. Okay, take 7.
My daughter just radiates joy. Like, she wakes up in the morning, she's excited to be up, she's excited to start her day, and that energy and that joy lasts the entire day.
She lights up the room everywhere we go. And it's one of the reasons we wanted to start this foundation, because there's so many kids out there like her. All the other kids with CACNA1A, they have families right behind them, just like we are for Marin, that want them to thrive, want them to succeed, and want them to have the best quality of life. And foundation is going to be the way that we can give it to them.
Thanks to our researchers, we are learning more about CACNA1A related diseases. But anyone who has been touched by it knows there is still a lot of work to be done. At 24, my daughter's cerebellum has begun to atrophy. The clock is ticking. Our goal as a family-led foundation is to push science forward to discover life-changing treatments for everyone living with this rare disease. Our kids are depending on us.
Well, thank you, everyone, for sitting in on this hour of 24 Hours of Rare. That was CACNA1A. We're so privileged to know Lisa and her group as well. And Dawn, I want to thank you again for your contribution and the work that you are doing. And appreciate everyone who has joined. And we look forward to seeing everyone in the next hour. At the top of the hour, go back to the homepage and click on join the current ongoing session. Thank you all, and hope you're having a great rare disease day.